So, Tim, with the general election coming up, we know that you are a candidate for the UUP, and what motivated you to stand for them?
A number of the political parties approached me and said, Ulster Unionist parties said, would you stand as a Ulster Unionist candidate, albeit as an independent unity candidate? And I looked at the situation in Northern Ireland, and I realised, as I was saying earlier about Sinn Féin's strategy is to sit back and not grow. Sinn Féin's share of the vote has not changed in about 20 years. Yet they're the largest political party, because what the Sinn Féin says, we're not going to grow, we're going to wait for the rest of you to shrink. And what has happened within Unionism and other parties is that fragmented. The SDLP, who were the moderate Catholic party, has almost ceased to exist. The Alliance Party, whose unique selling point used to be that they were the liberal Unionists and broadly represented the sort of moderate Catholic, moderate Unionist view, they have now swung to the left and become a nationalist party. And there is no one representing Unionism. The BBC and others crow about the fact that in the last census, there's now more Catholics than there is Protestants in Northern Ireland, and this is a seismic change. Again, sometimes you have to, because they're BBC and they're probably sniffing things they shouldn't, you have to explain it to them. If you looked at the overall population and you looked at the proportion of Catholics, it's barely changed. The proportion of Protestants has gone down significantly. But when you look at the proportion of people who describe themselves as nothing, it's grown. And if you add those together with the Protestants, you're back to square one. So very little's changed, except it's exciting to talk about if you're taking stuff out your nose. So the reality is that the big problem is in Northern Ireland is that only 41% of the population ever vote. And so they vote for the parties in the fragmented way, and they get the politics which hasn't moved since the peace agreement. Indeed, things are getting worse. Northern Ireland has never been more divided, and there's more dissident activity and more sectarianism than there's ever been since 1998. So it's time that somebody got involved in politics and started appealing to the 60% of people who don't vote and say, the moderate Protestants, the people who describe themselves as nothing at all, the new Northern Irish people and the moderate Catholics, and say, you got to get out and vote, outvote the lunatics, and let's have a stable part of the United Kingdom in an unstable world that we're sharing and contributing to the wealth of the United Kingdom and benefited from being part of probably the 9th largest economy in the world, as opposed to sitting at home and saying what will be will be. You can change this. You need to come out and vote. And those are the people I'm going to appeal to.
Are you optimistic in your chances, Tim? I mean, obviously you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't think there was at least a hope of being elected. And I think many people like me would be very pleased if you were elected. But what are your chances realistically?
It's hard to say, really. But Northern Ireland's like a big seance. And the middle classes and the wealth creators and the people who travel internationally and have watch other things in the local channels are simply not interested. It's a question of, can I get them engaged in politics? Secondly, a large number of those swung from the previous incumbent lady, Sylvia Herman, who was a unionist with small u. She had been an Ulster unionist, but then went independent. Much of her votes went behind Stephen Farry of the Alliance Party. The chap, he's the main opposition, really. He is able to do very effectively absolutely nothing. And North Down has the lowest GDP of any population in the whole of Northern Ireland, which is shameful in itself. That's explained to a certain degree that there's a lot of retired people there, but nevertheless, that's a fact. So he's presided over worse than mediocrity and has managed to do nothing and holds a seat. My hope is by doing something and providing some aspiration and the possibility of some jobs and more progress, I might tip the balance.
Well, I mean, let's hope you do. I mean, I think that I can echo what you say about the wealth creators and the middle classes not being involved in politics, because exactly the same happens in Scotland. And the Scottish Parliament is full of knuckle draggers and people lacking in intellect. But Scotland itself is awash with talent, both commercial, academic, you name it. But
one of the shameful things of expatriate Northern Ireland people, and there's many, many of them, and many of them are very wealthy and well-heeled, and some of them are moving, and they are all, the people I've mentioned, they underscored, are all unionists of some kind. The one thing they'll never admit in public is they're unionists, or even from Northern Ireland. They hang their heads in shame. And indeed, when I spoke to, I'll give you an example. I was at my nephew's wedding in Spain in 2022 when the local elections happened and Sinn Féin got a majority. And there was about 30 or 40 young men there who had grown up with my nephew, and they were there for his wedding, and all from Northern Ireland, not all from his school, from many schools, including some of the fee-paying Catholic schools. And they were all complaining about this. At one point, after they had a few drinks, I said, fellas, stop. Everybody look at me. There was silence. I said, you're not happy with what's happened in the local assembly. Hands up who voted. Not a one.
yeah,
These are the plastic surgeons, the estate agents, the financiers, and my point again was, if you don't vote, then you don't get. But the thing is, they're actually embarrassed by the fact that they're unionists, even they would never vote Sinn Féin. They want nothing to do with the Alliance Party. They won't admit that they wish the Ulster Unionists well, and they wish they'd succeed. And my point is, the only way you will succeed is if you vote for them. I say that I know people who campaigned in Scotland, and for the referendum election, it was brutal. And one chap told me that there's a number of places he went to near Inverness and in the Black Isle. And he said when he went to doors to knock and he could see he was pro-independence, no one would answer. But on several occasions, as he walked back up the path, someone would look around a curtain and give him the thumbs up. They were afraid to come to their own front door to even speak to these people. That's Scottish politics.
indeed it is. Indeed it is. But I've always said that most of them don't want to be tainted by the mediocrity of the Scottish Parliament and would rather spend their time on the golf course. And that is a great pity for the country as a whole. And so if you do get a seat, successfully get a seat in Parliament, what will your immediate priorities and goals be?
Speak to people in Parliament and really just be busy and up there all the time, being nice to people, and even leveraging some of my private wealth to take them for drinks and talk to them about Northern Ireland, try and get them engaged in Northern Ireland again. Why do I say that? Just before I announced the day before I went across to Northern Ireland in January to announce my standing for election, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the former leader of the DUP, made an emotional statement in Parliament, which then led to the Assembly being restored. It was covered in every detail in the papers in Northern Ireland, and it was on Northern Ireland TV round the clock. What everybody else missed was when the cameras panned back, there was 6 people in the chamber of the House of Parliament, and with the exception of somebody asleep on the government benches and a sentry on the opposition benches, and the rest of the place was empty. Nobody was interested. So the first thing is try and get people interested in Northern Ireland again and forge alliance, particularly with the Labour Party. The working class of Northern Ireland have much in common with them, more in common with them than they do with the working classes of the Republic of Ireland. We don't have there isn't an equivalent in the Republic of Ireland because it's a service economy. You don't have that the way the relationship we have with the working classes and even the middle classes in Northern Ireland. The second thing is I'd have to spend a lot of time in Brussels. Why Brussels? Brexit's happened, that's a fact. But Brexit is hurting Northern Ireland, the protocol. The fact of the matter is this has happened. The protocol is what it is. It's not going to change radically. But when you step back slightly from it, you have to look at what are the problems facing traders in Northern Ireland. It's the checks and the bureaucracy and the things that have been superimposed since Brexit in order to make life harder. The European Union has borders with 7 countries over thousands of kilometers, including Russia, Belarus, Turkey, and it has a 380-mile internal border in Northern Ireland on an island with a United Kingdom and an EU country, I say on an island. 80% of European checks are carried out in that 380-mile border. It's total hubris. So in the face of Russian aggression and a threat to all our futures, I would go and talk to European politicians and those of influence and say, let's bury the hatchet. Just wise up. The checks that you're doing within Ireland, that cow in the field over that could come from anywhere. That could have any disease in the world. And you say, no, sorry, that's still Northern Ireland. No, sorry, that one over there, that could have. It's a nonsense. The fact is, you can't walk your dog across the border. Nobody can even see the border. The nonsense that gets talked about, and that's what I'd want to go to Europeans and say, let's bury the hatchet. Let's come and visit Northern Ireland. Let's go and see it. The things that you're suggesting aren't practical, they aren't sensible. It's complete hubris. We got it. You've punished us. Let's move on.
Now, don't forget to keep updated at www.defencereview.uk and subscribe to the next podcast, wherever you get yours, and join us for the next explosive episode with Colonel Tim Collins and me, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford.